And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Zach with ATS, leading another one of our ATS University sessions. As you can see my name there, you can reach me at zach@atspec.com if you have any kind of questions or follow-up information that you wish to gather after the session. As with all of our sessions, this is going to be recorded, so we have everyone muted upon entry, but I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A and chat fields to address any questions along the way. A couple of times during the presentation today, we will be putting the link in chat for you to self-report and register your attendance for any AIA credits and for all those on the Canadian side of the border, as we have both in the audience today. If you were just looking for a certificate of attendance, we'll have that going out for a normal process, sent out on Fridays by our market development team. If you have any questions or wish to get this sort of session set up specific for your office at another date, we of course can help accommodate that, whether that's connecting with Gray or a local Lixil team member to help get a lunch and learn set up for your firm. With that, we've got Gray from Lixil with us today. I was saying before in the intro, joking around the keeper's secrets, but really the leader of all the training, development, and the continuing education. So a great resource for us to bring in and discuss really the low flow world. There continues to be a push towards water efficiency and savings. So there's new products coming out every year that help meet the more and more aggressive targets and guidelines that we are trying to keep up with. So we're going to go over some, as you can see on the main screen, some of the efficiency strategies for commercial plumbing today. We'll be talking mostly about commercial applications, which could be anything from an office to a recreational facility. And even, in our world, commercial does include, multifamily residential as well. So this could fit into your condos and the amenity buildings. So with that, I'll pass over to Gray, and I will be keeping an eye on the questions to make sure that we can raise any along the way.
All right. Thank you very much, Zach. And yes, please, if during this presentation, if anybody has a comment or a question, go ahead and raise your hand or put it into chat. Zach's going to help me watch and interrupt me. And absolutely, Zach, you have my permission to interrupt me at any point, because the more interactive, the better I find this to be. Zach said I'm the keeper of secrets. Actually, what that means is that I'm old. I've been in the plumbing industry for about 50 years. Most of that time, though, I was a product designer. And for 25 years, I was the design director at American Standard. So fortunately, I'm not in that role anymore. I now spend my time doing exactly this, sharing what I know and what I've experienced over my career with all of you all, and to pay it all forward. So again, thank you for being here today. The Earth, as you guys know, is covered 70% in water. Of that 70% of water, 2% of it is fresh water. Of that 2% of fresh water, 1.6 is locked up in the polar ice caps. The good news is we're melting the polar ice caps as fast as we can. The bad news is it's melting and flowing into the existing salt water. So, but that is that means we have a very small percentage of actual fresh water available for our use. So I want to talk today about how do we make the best use of that fresh water. And of course, this presentation I will follow all the AIA best practices going forward. So the things I want to go over today, I want to talk about how we test for performance, especially now that we've reduced the amount of water. So we'll go over that. I'll briefly explain for the US, I apologize to my Canadian buds, but for the US, some of the federal, state, and local guidelines that we use, I assume they're similar that you come across. I want to talk about LEEDs and how to effectively use the LEEDs program. And then I'm going to end on some of the products that are out there and performance and impact that they have. So starting with testing, the EPA changed things pretty dramatically in 1992. And again, I'll share with you all, I was a designer at Kohler for 9 years. And I was at Kohler as this was coming. And I've sat in meetings at Kohler where we truly believed that the act to go from 3.5 gallons a minute or flush for a toilet to 1.6 we truly believed it was not going to happen. That was just too radical a change. The government would never do that to the population. So that was the moment in my career where I left Kohler and came to American Standard. And lo and behold, I discovered in meetings at American Standard, they were having the same conversation, that it was not going to happen. So much to the industry's surprise, it did happen. We went from 3.5 gallons of water down to 1.6, which was a radical change. And so if you all remember products from the 90s, that was a real reduction. And along with that, shower heads went to 2.5 gallons a minute. They had been maxed out at 5 before that. And faucets, same thing. Faucets typically ran at 5 gallons a minute, and they were reduced to 2.2. So in the beginning, we were sort of taken aback. The whole industry, the stuff was not as good as it should have been. And so I will share with you, there is a perception that water efficiency products are not as good, and you want to hold on to that old stuff. And that's just not true. I hope that they get that across to you today. The total industry has really done an excellent job of creating high performance products that save water today. So the current situation is that in a commercial space, the maximum amount of water we're allowed to use is 1.6. The maximum amount of water to use is 1 gallon for the urinals. And commercial faucets, there is a cycle or a metering spec of about 0.5 gallon a minute. And the good news is those are high. We actually have products that way outperform that. So along with the sort of the history of what happened, as I shared with you, when I was a kid, toilets routinely flushed on 5 gallons of water. A 2-piece toilet used 5 gallons of water. If you had one of those 1-piece toilets, it flushed on 7 gallons of water. And so in the late 70s, we introduced what we called water miser toilets. That's how we got to 3.5. I shared with you what the EPA did in the US in 1992. And so they went pretty dramatically from 3.5 to 1.6 gallons. As I said, the manufacturers in the mid 90s did not do a great job, but constant work and engineering performance, it started to change, and high performance low flow toilets started to enter the market in the late 90s, 1998. And so by 2003, we sort of had a good, better, best on toilets flowing at that 1.6, that lower rate. And I'll share with you how we test and perform that. And then the EPA, and they got with us to do this with the company I work for, but they met with the manufacturers and said, if we set a new standard, WaterSense, and I'll talk about WaterSense a little further. And so moving forward, again, things continue to improve. And at this point here, we really have high efficiency toilets. And again, I'll talk about that. A typical toilet sold in North America flushes on 1.28 gallons of water. And I'll just share with you, the product that industry is making today outperforms all those 3.5 gallon toilets that we made prior to the 1990s. So pretty dramatic over the last 20 years, really dramatic drop in the amount of water we use. You can see in toilets, we went from 3.5 to 1.6 to 1.2. And so we've reduced the water usage, we've reduced the energy, and reduced the municipal expense. So I get asked every once in a while, how do you test a toilet? As you imagine, we can't test it with real waste. That would be dangerous. So the industry for years had a standard that everybody used. The companies I worked for used test media, we call it. But we would like put a little 100 nylon balls in and flush them and count how many that didn't get taken out. And we would put polypropylene granules in and flush them and count how many didn't get taken out. We would put a very heavy blue dye in, and that was for water exchange. And then there was actually a test where you took a marker and drew a line around the rim of the bowl, and hopefully it washed it away. So those were sort of standard tests that all toilets had to pass. Thank you to Canada, and a company called Veritech. Yeah, truly. Veritech is an independent test agency who developed a test called MAP testing, and it stands for Maximum Performance Test. And instead of real waste, they took restaurant-grade miso, soybean paste, and they put it in little 50-gram links and devised a test where they would put 100 grams in, flush the toilet, they put a toilet on a test stand, put 100 in, flush it, put 200 in, flush it, put 300 in, flush it, and they would repeat that test with the soybean paste until the toilet either clogged or did not take out all the soybean paste, and then they stopped the test, and that's how they rated the toilets. So there is a site today. All toilets sold in North America are independently tested by Veritech, and you can go to that site and look up any manufacturer's product to see what the performance is. And it's just a test for performance. It doesn't get into noise or bowl flush or leakage. It's strictly a performance test. If for commercial installations, it's not only the soybean paste, but it's a combination where we'll put in 8 loosely crumpled balls of toilet paper, 6 sheets per ball, 2 toilet paper seat covers, the covers that pull off and flush too, and 2 paper towels. So for a commercial toilet, the test is even more extreme, as it should be, because we want those to function and always work. And so if you go to map-testing.com, you will see that all the manufacturers, you can look up any residential or commercial toilet, and it will give you the performance rating. And typically they consider a toilet working if it flushes 350 grams of miso per flush. Test goes up to 1,000 grams. And they stop the test at 1,000 grams because they figure, what's the point? Beyond 1,000 grams, the human body can't possibly produce that. So there are toilets that exceed the 1,000-gram MAP score, but that's where the rating stops and it maxes out. So and that's how
I was going to say, I can actually share a little side story, I guess, maybe of a learning, maybe some recommendation to those that may have the scientific mindset and are like, oh, it's just soybean paste. Let me go try to recreate this at home. It is a little bit more than simple soybean miso paste. Many years back, almost a decade or so ago, I was working with a local engineer here, one of the larger ones in Canada, and they were having trouble. They basically needed to ensure that the toilets on site were performing per function. So my bright mind thought, well, maybe I can reverse engineer and build my own MAP test out of the soybean paste, having read up on it. And it is a proprietary blend. And if you just try to take miso paste and wrap it into a log and freeze it, it will not work. So learn from my mistakes. You do not want to have these in your freezer for a week while your partner questions what's going through your mind.
Nope. So, there you go. Yeah, no, the test is very specific, and it's really good. It's a good thing because it's consistent across all manufacturers. We all adhere to the same tests. So when you look at the test data, you can actually do a fair comparison. That's absolutely true. I will share
a good example of what ATS will go above and beyond to try to do to help out our
engineers. There you go. I will share with you at our company. We were buying 5-gallon tubs of restaurant grade miso to correctly do the test before we passed it off to Veritech. We of course wanted to test to make sure first. They came to us. The restaurant industry came to us and said, "What on earth are you doing with all this miso?" They questioned why anybody would be buying the quantity of miso paste that we were. So we did. We explained to them, and they were fine with that. They were
you get a couple odd looks, but
yeah, exactly. And then the other thing I'll share with you, Zach, real quick: the engineers who do all this have a different opinion when they go out to get miso soup or miso glazed chicken. It has changed their perception. So every drop counts. And I share with you that here in the U.S., the EPA, they had a rating system for appliances called Energy Star. You all may have heard of Energy Star. And they decided to do the same thing for plumbing products. And so they were really curious as to what was potentially possible, standards to set for the industry. So they didn't want to set standards the industry couldn't meet, but they tried to put some stretch and some reach goals in. And the environment, the head of the EPA came and spent a whole day poring over the data with our engineering team. And we shared everything we had, all of our test data and all of our experimental data, and we shared. So I'm proud to say that the WaterSense is now based on the data that we shared all those years ago. So a high efficiency toilet rated for WaterSense today would flush on 1.28 gallons of water. So it would be a high efficiency toilet, which means that it takes out a significant amount of the MAP score. For us, that means 1,000 grams. I shared with you that the test tops out at 1,000. So when we're engineering a toilet that's going to be a high efficiency toilet, our goal is to flush on 1.28 gallons of water and achieve that 1,000 gram MAP score. They rated a high efficiency bath faucet for commercial 0.5 and for residential 1.5. And it's a voluntary program, but it's a way of people choosing products and knowing that it has been certified or rated by the EPA to meet this level of performance. And there are performance standards that go with it. I'll just share with you that bath faucet at 1.5, in reality, the whole industry, if you buy a bath faucet today, it's going to flow at 1.2 gallons per minute. So we are exceeding that 1.5. And the reason all of us are exceeding it, there's a company out there called Neopearl. Neopearl is a European company that does a brilliant job of engineering all the little aeration and stream straighteners that the whole industry uses. And so Neopearl did an excellent job of developing a device at 1.2 that gives tremendous performance. And so everybody adopted that. So like I say, it's a voluntary program. A high efficiency urinal should flush on 0.5 gallon. A high efficiency toilet should flush on 1.28 as a maximum, and a minimum of 1 gallon. I'll just share with you the reason there's a minimum. It has to do with the drain lines. The drain line infrastructure in the US starts to fail based on tests, starts to fail when you get below actually 0.9 gallons. I know for a fact it's 0.9. Once you get below that, we could develop products that flush on less, but the drain lines would start to fail. So there is a min-max on what we can do until we're willing to replace all the drain lines in the country. And like I shared with you, it also applies to shower heads. A high efficiency shower head from WaterSense would be 2 gallons a minute max. But again, what's happening, at least in the US, here in North America, is that most of the ones being engineered will flow at 1.75 or 1.8, depending on the model and the brand. So again, it's one of those things where the industry is actually exceeding the sort of the minimum standards and goals that were set. And it isn't arbitrary. We just don't restrict the amount of water. There is a test. The little screen you see here, the little chart, that's actually a formal EPA test disc that we all have. What it is, it's a counterbalance disc with little weights on the back and hooked up to a computer. And we turn the shower head on and aim it at this disc. And the shower head, it actually records the individual droplets. And what's critical is the shape and size and speed of the droplet and the impact it has to give you a rich drenching feel. You all have probably experienced a high efficiency shower head that had tremendous pressure but was painful to use. That's not the goal. The goal is to take less water but use it in such an effective way to give a drenching effect so that people don't realize they have a water-saving shower head. And
so it's almost like call it a pared down or condensed version of the emergency shower test that they're running then.
Oh, cool.
Like ANSI and emergency showers have a test that you have to get a certain amount of volume within a diameter. So it's very similar to that.
Very good. I did not know that, Zach. That makes sense, though. I only know it from the residential, but yeah, sure. You would want to achieve the same thing. How do you effectively use the water to have a drenching effect as quick as possible? Yep. Excellent. And WaterSense products, like I say, they're recommended both commercially and residentially, and they're sort of a great beginning point for leads. I'll talk about leads a little further in the presentation, but another great goal out there. So, of course, saving water is a great thing, but oh my gosh, saving water also saves money. So if you put in a 2-gallon, and as I share with you, boy, the shower heads are now 1.75 or 1.8, but you can save 2,300 gallons of water a year for a family of 4 on average. Again, putting in the faucet, you can save over 500 gallons a year, and a 1.28 gallons toilet, depending on the cost of the water in your area, of course, but you can save almost 4,000 gallons per year. So as you can see, it is cost effective to physically replace and put in new products. The products, depending on the cost of the water in your area, the products will pay for themselves in a fairly short period of time. And the reason I share that with you, these are high-performing products. They've been engineered so people don't realize they're conserving water and saving it. They're going to pay for themselves. And the challenge that we all have is that there's a perception that old plumbing is better than new. And people really do hold on to old plumbing. And that's not a good thing. There's nothing good about old plumbing. It doesn't work as well. The performance is not as good. The ergonomics are better today, especially with ADA. And even the materials we use. Some of the old product, the lead content is unacceptable for today's world. And I'll just give you a quick story. When in the turn of the century, in 1900, we were making really beautiful toilets that had this glaze that was opalescent when the light hit it just the right way. It was gorgeous. And the way we achieved that in the glaze was it's slightly radioactive. And that product is still to this day, if you come across that cherished old ceramic product from the early 1900s, it will still read radioactive today. So nothing good about old plumbing is the point I want to get across. So as I shared, those are that's WaterSense, and what a good thing that is, along with map testing. It gives us a gauge and a place to look for reference. Any other questions, Zach, before I move on?
No, that was wild and surprising. Oh, we just have one coming in.
Okay.
How many flushes on average does it take to flush a typical classified document at 128
Cute.
GPM?
That's cute. That's cute. And my answer would be, if you have a custom-made gold toilet, it's going to take multiple flushes. There's nothing good about custom Chinaware. So there you go. All right. So so that brings me to sort of the federal standards, and they're constantly changing. So certainly, and they change around the country and around North America. So we all need to be up to date on what are the codes and standards in our local area. But water stress, let me just put it into perspective again. I talked about the fact that the fresh water available to us, how are we using that fresh water? 69% of the fresh water globally is used in agriculture, which is a massive amount of water. That's overwhelmingly 69%. Industry is the next big user at 19%, and the households are using 12%. And when I say household, I don't mean plumbing. I mean the total household. I'm saying, yes, showers, toilets, kitchen faucet, but also washer, dryer, watering the lawn, filling the pool, all the different things that you use. It's wash the car. It's 12% for households. So it's fascinating how much the plumbing industry has worked to reduce the amount of water, given that we're not the big users, but still that's a good thing. In fact, I happen to know residential plumbing, like showers and faucets and toilets, represent 3% of the total fresh water used. But we're still ahead. So this I just want to share with you, Colorado River. Oh my gosh, we are abusing the Colorado River, and I assume this occurs in other places throughout North America. But again, if you see a little chart, residential's 12% of everything coming out of the Colorado. Commercial and industrial is 4%. Power plants use 4%. So it gets us down to agriculture And as you can see, agriculture is overwhelmingly the lion's share of all the water being used. So only 21% is not agriculture, as we talked about. But this one's the one that really freaks me out. Of agriculture, overwhelmingly 50+% of all the water used in agriculture is to grow livestock. And I find that maddening. The fact that the majority of the fresh water we are using today on Earth is to grow livestock. And I don't know if you all watch Yellowstone, the series, and the whole romance of cowboys and livestock and everything, but it's not sustainable. As the standard of living around the world rises, we are not going to be able to grow enough livestock to sustain this. So there are alternatives coming, and we need to really consider it. But I'll give you a fun fact. The a McDonald's Big Mac, I don't know when was the last time you ever had one, but you know what I'm talking about with the McDonald's Big Mac. How many gallons of water do you think it takes to make one single Big Mac? Anybody? You can put it in the chat, or don't know? All right.
I would guess 5 gallons, just because you're already making it sound like it's like really high.
It's really high. So it's worse than you think. It takes 2,000 gallons of water for all the different things that go in to make a Big Mac. So every time someone orders and eats a Big Mac, that was 2,000 gallons of water that were used. And I'm talking everything. The grain, the bed, the bun, the processing, the lettuce, the tomato, all that stuff. But overwhelmingly the beef. The beef is the real, yeah. So again, these are things, how would we know? And so we're trying to address it. I live in California. We are abusing the Colorado River unbelievably. And so how do we start to change that? How do we stop using what is a precious resource, the Colorado River, stop using it for raising livestock? So anyway, some of the things we got to consider. So in the US, the federal government, you all know, and this is not really the latest with the latest infrastructure bills that have gone in, but the federal government does purchase a lot. The federal government in total, with the programs they fund here in the US, used between 244 and 256 billion gallons of water per year. And so what can we do? So there are a lot of these rules and laws that I talked about are being enforced by the federal government. But state and local has a number. Here in California, we have Cal Green. Miami-Dade County has things in place. Urban Green is another one where we're trying to reduce. Even Texas. Texas, which is not known for regulations, still is progressive when it comes to water usage. So here in Cal Green, if you put in a new toilet, it has to be a 1.28 or less. If you put in a urinal, it says half a gallon. I happen to know we're down to a pint is the new regulation for urinals here, which is a good thing. You can see residential faucets have to be are now at 1.2 here in California. So it's all good things. Cal Green, California does have too much water right at the moment, given the last 6 months of rain. But in general, we have a drought situation here. Texas, again, has very effectively, over the last 10, 15 years, put effective rules into place and local codes and incentives where we have gone from replacing all those 5-gallon toilets to putting in 1.28. And Texas is another place that has severe drought problems and are addressing it on a local basis. So, and again, there was a series over the years where we required new products. Shower heads can't exceed 2.5, toilets cannot exceed 1.28, urinals cannot exceed a half gallon. And as I shared with you before, the good news is the industry is meeting or exceeding those standards on the products that we're now selling and sharing. The Green Codes Task Force, that was New York City. And New York City, again, actively put incentives in place, not only new codes, but funding of the replacement of products. They had a very aggressive program. And so over a 3-year period, using rebates, apartment owners could get up to $240 per toilet to replace them. And what occurred was 1.3 million fixtures were replaced. It ended up at 29% average savings per apartment building, which represents basically 70 to 90 millions a gallon per day were saved just over that 3-year program. So programs like this, they seem annoying, but they're effective and actually do a good job of moving everybody to save water. So while the population increased 7% from 1990 to 2006 in New York City, water consumption dropped by 1.46 billion gallons per day. So all of this is possible. We are doing good things moving forward. Miami, Florida again has water issues, either too much or not enough, depending on how things are changing at the moment. But Dade County is Miami. South Florida consumes 3.4 billion gallons of potable water per day. And so there are effective things in place in Florida in an attempt to reduce that. So Florida building codes have been updated and are working to make sure that any remodeling or new construction uses energy efficient products. So I share with you, my opinion, the plumbing industry is doing a good job, but please, I want you all to be confident when you're speccing the product and know where to go to look up performance. But we all meet as an industry. So all the different manufacturers that you interact with in your job, you can see a list here. We're on here, as are all of our competitors. But we come together as an industry. We have committees with PMI where we meet. We discuss not only are we achieving the goals that we want, but collectively as an industry, we talk about where we're going in the future. So all the manufacturers together get together and decide ahead of the government what the new goals are that we're going to reach for, both from a water usage standpoint and a performance standpoint, so that the general population doesn't realize that we've actually improved. So that brings me to LEEDs. And is everybody familiar with LEEDs? I assume you are, probably more familiar than me, but we're at LEEDs version 4.1 at the moment. And that's where in designing and getting credit for a new architectural design, you can get different levels of LEED certification. And it's my understanding, again, you all probably know better than I do, that if you can get a top rated LEEDs building, you can get a greater price or rent for the space, whether it's residential or commercial. So it's a good goal all the way around. And so what LEEDs did was set a baseline that here's the baseline that for a LEED certified building, we expect you to achieve this. And so any percentage you can go below this baseline will give you extra credit and a higher rating for the building. So you can see it's pretty generous. Kitchen faucets at 1.2, bathroom faucets at 1.2 also, commercial metering faucets at half gallon, shower heads at 2.5, again, generous, toilets at 1.6, and urinals at a gallon. So that's a pretty generous baseline, in my opinion, because the reality is, as I shared with you, for toilets, the majority of toilets sold in the US and the majority of high efficiency toilets have tremendous performance, but 1.28 gallons. I'll just share you with you. It is frustrating to me. I shared with you, I live in California. I'm always taken aback that people just can't perceive that these products work as well as they do, and they're holding on to their old toilets. And the percentage of 1.28 gallons in the state of California is really sad. We're roughly at 4 to 5% total installation today, because everybody's holding on to the old product. But we're working on it. As you can see, shower heads at 1.75, that's a 30% reduction in water usage based on the baseline. Kitchen faucets are we sell kitchen faucets. The industry does at 1.5 gallon a minute flow rate. That's a 20% reduction. And as I share with you, all those 1.2 gallon lav faucets out there, that's a 45% reduction from the LEED base. And on the commercial side of it, a 1.1 gallon toilet, 1,000 gram MAP score on a commercial, that's a 31% reduction. Pint urinals that I talked about is an 87% reduction. And sensor faucets at 0.2 gallons per minute per cycle. would be a 60% reduction. So the high performance product is out there to really achieve amazing stuff when it comes to leads. You didn't ask me this question. The question comes up all the time on waterless urinals. That's a way to really achieve maximum leads points on a urinal, but they're a maintenance problem. Waterless urinals require daily maintenance just to keep them clean, and they require physical maintenance to change out the cartridges to keep them functioning. So this is just Gray talking. I'm a big fan of the pint urinal. The pint urinal doesn't require the attention of the maintenance staff, and delivers tremendous performance and cleanliness on a routine basis. So
yeah, I'll just share on the waterless side, it really does seem to have kind of almost come and gone. I still get a request here and there for it, but the initial wave, certainly there was a number of maintenance issues that were associated with it, like you mentioned, and the amount of cleaning required really led to issues. We had a couple of comments coming in from chat. One kind of on lead in general, and just the perception of it in the industry. I think when it really started becoming prominent, maybe a decade ago, I certainly saw a number of people with more positive opinion. These days, I am seeing a lot more people that are maybe, I call it lead intent. They're not necessarily filing the paperwork, but they're still following some of the standards, just because of the cost of submitting all the paperwork, but they still want to have the low flow intent. And there are other standards that are coming out. You have a number of other standards that come out and can be followed along. Cool. One thing that I'll throw out there, maybe you can comment on a little bit. I think it was 2 slides ago, you had like the little asterisks. And I know this is one thing that comes up regularly in my conversations as people will come to me and say, hey, we're trying to meet a 30% reduction for our lead project. Can you supply a package that includes products that will meet this? And of course, they all have to be WaterSense labeled, because part of LEED 4.0 or 4.1 is a requirement of WaterSense. And the link that I sent in chat also has it. But the asterisks here are showing, I believe, the products that would require the WaterSense label. And an important note is the commercial lab is missing. So if you're doing an office building, if you are doing really a number of different applications that have a public washroom, you are not looking for the WaterSense label product because that is incongruent to your design standard. WaterSense is looking for a little bit of a higher flow than our commercial washrooms are experiencing. And there's a number of factors to go into WaterSense, like the quality of the shower that you mentioned, the quality of the hand wash experience is measured there as well. And it's just an important note. If I'm bringing up another time to get it to a wide audience, I'm on my grandstand bringing it up here. Make sure you're keeping up to date on what the requirements are. It's not just a blanket statement, have all products require WaterSense. There are specific ones for specific environments where this is required. So I just want to bring that up, mention that I sent the link in the chat there. Great. And then another question coming in from the chat as we give you a pause to take a water here. Are kitchen faucets typically factored into water reduction calcs? Previous understanding was that they were not included as in cooking activities, and high efficiency faucets could be a nuisance. So if it goes back to almost the janitor's sink example. You have a mop bucket that needs to be filled with the same amount of water. It doesn't matter how long it takes; it's the same amount of water. Right. Do you have an answer to that, or would you like me to kind of?
Yeah. So there's real demand. We're amazed at how many people are now speccing and putting in 1.5 gallon kitchen faucets, and I completely agree. For just average use, what you're giving up is time, because it takes longer to fill the vase, fill the pot, fill the bucket, all those things. Having said that, if you shift to another category, like that commercial dog bone faucet that you with the bucket hook on the end, that has no flow restriction. So you can fill that bucket as fast as the valve can handle. Same thing with the pot fillers that we sell over stoves. Again, there is no flow restriction on those because it's about time it's a given volume in X amount of time. It's not about a flow rate. So that's very perceptive. And
Yeah,
so
I believe
it is.
I was going to align with you on that. Kitchen faucets, the general kitchen faucet has come into a target flow rate, and you will see a 1.5 as the desired flow.
Right.
Your service sink faucets, your mop sink faucets, if you're doing commercial kitchen, your scullery sinks, where it's more of a substantial dump load, those are not, because it's a volumetric, so there is no target flow rate. For your
Right.
general kitchen faucet, because it does get used for hand washing, it does get used for, the way people wash dishes has changed. You're not always filling up the sink and then dumping it in. A lot of people have a dishwasher, so they're doing general like rinsing and hand washing where they're running the faucet, and that's why those have been included in those targets. The dump load, you can file for an exception there, and a lot of them are not even targeted in that flow rate. So great question, and a great point of differentiation of really thinking what is the purpose here and thinking of your application.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I know there are times, especially in multi housing, it comes down to cost. You all are probably aware a modern high efficiency dishwasher is going to use way less water than if you were to wash the dishes in the sink. It's counterintuitive, but it absolutely, from a water conservation, a dishwasher is the more effective way to go if you can afford one. Is the challenge. Very good. Those are good comments and questions. So and there are other technologies. So I've only been talking about efficient plumbing products. There are other technologies we can use. Rainwater capture for toilets and urinal flushing. Gray water systems. Oh my gosh. When I began my career 50 years ago, we were doing a tremendous amount of research on gray water systems. It all worked back then. It's still a thing today. It's my personal experience that most gray water systems today are being used for irrigation. Really overwhelmingly lawn care and grounds and irrigation. It says fire protection and fountains. You all may know better than I do. Are people actually using gray water for fire protection and fountains? But it's always been coming. It's like hydrogen for your car. It's always in the future, but it never seems to arrive. But there's been a tremendous amount of research done on gray water. So
so specifically on gray water, there's so much. There's a lot of filtration requirements depending on the application and depending on how you're using it. A drip irrigation is going to have different requirements than an aerosolization type. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. Rainwater to a different degree is, a little bit more, I would say, useful in those cases. There's also just so much filtration that goes into gray water that it seems to always be in the future. But rainwater for irrigation and toilet flushing is a great combination system.
Very good. Agreed. So again, LEEDS, good program, and I appreciate your comments, Zach, that people are achieving it even if they don't do all the paperwork. It's still a good target for all of us as good citizens to be moving towards, and WaterSense is a good tool to begin with on getting the right products in there. I want to talk a bit about a green toilet. There's a fascinating bathroom to me because, again, when I started my career, bathrooms, showers were 2-handle or 3-handle showers. There was no pressure balancing. The bathroom lavs, as you can see here, were flowing at 5 gallons a minute, and here was a typical toilet back then. This would have flushed on 5 gallons of water. So a green toilet, though, is one that removes the waste in the toilet paper. We talked about that. A flow rate at 1.28 gallons per minute, as close to 1,000-gram MAP score as possible from an engineering standpoint to achieve. We want a clear bowl with fresh water back in it every time, and require a minimum amount of cleaning. There's a number of manufacturers look into this who have created high-performance glazes that require less cleaning over time, and so less use of harsh chemicals, and also have active antimicrobial agents built into the glazes permanently. So other things to look for when speccing a green toilet.
A quick question, and then kind of circling back to the map testing.
Yeah.
With the whether it's an Everclean or SaniClean, whatever the other antimicrobial friction reducing coatings are,
Yep.
Is that found to be represented in the map test results? Like if you have a 1.1 or 1.28 from the coated versus non-coated, is the friction loss affecting flow?
So all of those glazes, not the antimicrobial part, but all of those that typically the glaze surface is twice as smooth. And yes, that does have an impact on the performance. Yes, it does improve. And it stays cleaner longer. Still has to be cleaned, but it stays cleaner longer and is easier to clean when you need to do it. But it does impact the performance. So it's a good thing. Toilet solutions. So I was overwhelmingly talking about either flush valves for commercial or gravity toilets for residential, but there are other, you all are probably aware, there are foam based systems, there are vacuum systems, and I'm not going to go into them today. I'm actually not smart enough to go into them, but know that they do exist. There are alternatives out there to consider. Flush valve technology has improved really pretty dramatically. And one of the interesting things happening in flush valves is they're now programmable. If they're touch-free is becoming a part of our world. So on touch-free products, programmable actually allows you to change the flow rate to adjust it even after installation, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So you might want to save more water, or if you're having a drain line performance issue on a particular unit, you might be able to up the performance. But it's interesting what electronics is doing to improve performance and water conservation. Urinals, I shared with you, the standard is it has to be at least less than a gallon. WaterSense is half a gallon, but in reality, pint urinals are the new standard of performance and effective way of giving clean performance. And by the way, just real quick, urinals. This is Gray talking now. There should be urinals in the home, and that's kind of a North American thing that we don't have them in the home. But we would reduce the amount of water used in a home dramatically if we allowed urinals in the home. And anyway, that's just a aside. As a product designer, that's an aside comment. So again, things to consider. The way on performance on the toilets, we certainly want to use this less water, but the size of the trapway. We want a siphoning trapway, and as large as we can make that trapway, the more performance. The top trapways out there are 2 3/8 in diameter. A standard high performing is 2 1/8, but the top ones out there are 2 1/8. There are different systems. If you look inside a toilet tank, the most high performance toilets have a 3-inch flush valve. There are models out there that actually have a 4-inch diameter flush valve. What that does is deliver the 1.28 gallons of water to the bowl in under 0.7 of a second. It's really, really fast. And then there's actually systems today that have separate injection, where there are different flappers that open and close, sending water either to the rim or to the trapway. So there are new technologies out there. Just real quick, if you're not aware, most toilets in North America siphon. That's a North American thing. If we all go to Europe, they all are washed down. And you're always going to get much higher performance on waste removal and water usage. Lower water usage and higher performance with a siphoning toilet. A washdown toilet is going to use more water and typically has poor performance. Isn't going to get beyond 600-gram MAP score testing. Dual flush is an interesting thing. It came from Europe, where you would push one button for liquid and one for solid. I'm seeing that go away. That's trending away now because a single lever 1.28 is so efficient that it's really not worth it anymore when you do the averaging between a 1.6 and a 1. You really can save more water with just a current 1.28. And then again, the design of the bowl is important. You want safety features so the water doesn't drip on the floor, and a jet design. So again, it's not using gravity in this case, but the force of a flush valve to remove the waste. And when it comes to faucets, as I shared with you, 1.2 is the new standard. NeoPro engineered those to give great performance at the lower flow rate. Water conservation do consider the valving. All these faucets should have ceramic valving, and that's not a given. But ceramic valves are more precise, easier to use, and last much longer than rubber O-rings. And so they're construction and a better way to go. And then sensor faucets have really changed dramatically during the pandemic. And there are models that work effectively, are easy to install using proximity, and you can either get those with or without a little temperature control, depending on whether you want the user to have that ability. But these, again, very often are programmable, so you can actually change the characteristics, the length of runtime, the amount of water being used. And that was a factor during the pandemic. And high-performance shower heads, as I indicated, the engineering going into these is significant now. Computational fluid dynamics and silicone bladders to really deliver precise water effects at 1.75. So it's not accomplished through water conservation alone. The other thing that we all need to do is change our habits. How do we use the products in the field? Do we leave the water running while we brush our teeth or shaving? What are the daily habits? All of us could work to improve what conservation is. And that brings me to the end. I wanted to leave you some time, Zach.
I appreciate it. We'll pause here for a second, see if any additional questions come in. I think one of the interesting things for me, with all these new products coming out, a lot of them are on, like the silicone nozzles on the shower, where it's about preventing, it's not just providing the stream, it's about preventing maintenance hazards. A small amount of sediment could clog up, the fine aspects of an aerator or those outlets, and preventing the calcification, so you're still getting effective use at the low flow or ultra low flow. Because there's less margin for error. You can't if you lose 10% of your shower at 1.75, you're losing a lot more percentage of the water. The actual volume of water is drastic, and you feel the difference. So I think that's very interesting. Did want to send out another reminder. So thank you for putting that up here. I'm going to put it to the chat here as well. We popped it in earlier, but if you want to register your attendance for the CEU, you can submit the information there and get the event code and all that information. This is kind of the end of the CEU side. If you want to stop sharing for a second, maybe we'll leave this up here for another second, see if any questions come in.
Yeah, I want to make sure they get this, but I'd be happy to stop sharing.
Yeah.
If you listen to me for the last hour, you should get credit for it. So be sure to.
All right. That's a great point. So if you need anything, you'll be able to pop that into the chat as well. Maybe you can put the code in the chat.
Okay, I will do.
And I will take over sharing for a second. I want to show you how you can find the products that we're discussing today. If you're unfamiliar, my roles with the ATS spec team, we are partnered and sponsored by Lixil and a number of other manufacturers. If you go to atspec.com, you can either sign up or log in to the free online specification tool. This is basically product selections. It's a way that you can freely, easily get access to various manufacturers' product information and make code compliant, rules-based selections where we recommend product based on application. And compared to like a manufacturer's website where you are just kind of getting the base model, you can actually configure your selection on here and ensure that you're outputting your documentation in 10 different formats, and it'll be configured to the actual model that you select. One thing I want to show, even before you log in, you have access to what we call our templates, which we'll walk through shortly, and our learning hub, where you can actually access all the previously recorded webinars on various subjects. We've had other low flow discussions. We've had sizing discussions on pumps and water heaters. We've had emergency discussions. As you can tell, my ANSI understanding and experience there, landing it over the shower heads. Once you log in, this is going to be a team-based account. So your firm will have an account, and you can share this between other people within the firm. You can share projects back and forth, work on projects together, and you can build a couple different ways. Once you've logged in on our dashboard here, we have our quick spec, we have a project, and we have a master. So what is the difference there? Quick spec is if you're looking for a single item. It's the quickest and easiest way to get to the end, to the downloads. So if we're just looking for a faucet, I can put in faucet, hit finish, and I'm into my product selection. You can see all the different categories here. So I could search for faucet, select it, and I'm into the category. I can search by manufacturer, flow rate, application type, operation type, sensor, manual, two handle, single handle, all sorts of different filters and functions that you can do. But again, because of the speed here, I'm going to head on over to our projects tab where you have a little bit more detail. Now you put in your location. If I hit this plus button, we're going to put in a new project. It's going to take us to where we have to put in a full project name. So the difference would be, this would be, say, Gray's water saving world, where you select country. And if you select United States, you start getting the ADA available to you. If there's specific local codes, we go Texas, we go with California, and it's going to apply the Cal Green standards to your product selections. We can say we're in San Diego. And we're going to select a bid date here. This is just an approximation. Get it as close as you can to your upcoming bid date when you're going to be going out to market for shop drawings, all that jazz, and approximate square footage. What that does is ensure that you get any sort of discontinuances. You'll be notified if the manufacturer changes the model number, then you'd be updated. And then you have your application where we start applying that rules engine, and you could select condominium, apartment, student residence, whatever, and it's going to apply the rules engine to recommend the appropriate products for the right application. You can also see we've got our templates. We've got a number of kind of ATS recommendations is what our templates are. These are the products that we recommend for an application. I'll show you how to use this shortly, but it would allow you to see the most recommended products, select from them, and quickly and easily, just by clicking this button, you could have a standard selection available to you right away in a matter of minutes. You get easiest way to get 100 different selections ready to go. I'm going to bump out though, because I always assume I'm going to be a little bit delayed. You can see I've started a project here. I've got an ultra low flow 1.1 gallon per flush valve selected, paired it with my my toilet and seat as well as the carrier. This is one thing ATS tries to recommend, but it's always buy in as much as you want. If you are not looking for the carrier, you can simply not select it. You can delete it, whatever it is you need. If you're specifying, you're not selecting the seats, maybe the architect or interior designer is selecting them. They've got fancy, green seats that they want to use. You could just not select that and select as much or as little as you want. If I want to add a new product here, I can hit the plus button. And again, it takes me back to that category screen where you have all the various categories that are available on ATS. Obviously there's a lot to search through on your own. So we have various ways that you can do it. You can filter by division, as well as you can pin your favorites. So you can see I've got drinking fountain pinned here. I could search toilet, pin that. And next time I log in, that'll be pinned. And it's right here, red and easy to access for me. So I'm going to bump into that category, go into the toilet category. And here again, I spend a little bit more time explaining how the filters work and all that information. You can see I've got toggles at the top where I can toggle on my barrier-free code. I could toggle on bariatric, or I could toggle on child height. And that's going to refine the selection to just those applications. So if I toggle my barrier-free, it's going to store it through and start applying the local code. I've got project built in Texas here, so if there's any specifics that we've been made aware of and built into a rules engine, like the TAS standards that are being applied, those would show here. You could filter by model type, you could filter by water consumption, tank operation, map score even. And we're looking at adding additional filters like different labels, maybe well standards or water sense labeled, anything like that. You can also search. So if you're more familiar with the product, maybe you don't fully know every model number off by hand, but you remember that you like the Vormax. Or you remember from this presentation that there's a Vormax U-head. It's one I filter for all the time because people are always asking me for the most water savings possible. So I can search specific for this. I could filter down to the 1.1 gallon per flush. I could do all sorts of different options to try to get that search loaded. Oh, I must have probably got an extra filter on. I messed up, Gray. I never mess up.
I believe that, Zach. But it looks like a powerful tool.
Yeah, it's great for helping you find the right selection, whether or not you know exactly what you're looking for, or if you want to filter down to find more, maybe get some recommendations. And in terms of recommendations, we also have our select most popular function. So if you don't, want to go through the trouble of configuring your individual selection, but I'm going to hit actuator on left. I'm going to go with the basic polished chrome trip lever, and then go with the U-head tank. You can see there's the right side tank as well. And once I've made all the selections, this continue configuring button turns into add product button. So you've actually gone through and updated the model number to the specific version that you're using, not just a base general model. If you want more information on what the options are, you can hit spec sheet, and all the manufacturer spec sheets are loaded into the system. So you can review more details, you can get more information, and I can hit add product and go through that selection. Then it's going to take me to the seat. It's going to take me to some supplies, all that information. But again, I know I'm running a little bit behind. So I'm going to hit back to project here once it loads up. And I'm going to show you a couple more of the customizable features. So one of the other tabs I've got open, I've got our templates available. You can see these ATS templates here. And these are, again, our recommendations based on application. If you have a internal firm master, maybe you're working at WSP, Stantec, whatever firm you're working at, and you have a recommended educational master because you're working with the school board all the time. You have a owner group master for your condo that you're working with all the time. That's your internal master, and you can have that as well here in the master section. The ATS versions are kind of our recommendations for those. So you can see they're broken down by application. And of course, you can also use these to start your own master on the system. So if I go into the US residential master template, you can see it's going to be broken down by different product groups. So I've got, on the fixture side, good, better, best. We've got architectural accessories. I've got all the drainage, all the mechanical equipment, all the fire protection equipment, and more that are all available. But we just quickly wanted to add a barrier-free toilet into our selection. Let's say we need to add a barrier-free tub, any barrier-free shower. It's as simple as just checking those boxes, hitting copy to, and you can copy this into your new master if you're doing repeat work on a particular application type, or you can copy it into an existing or new project. So I started one called Lixil webinar earlier. I'm going to put it into the Lixil webinar group and hit copy. And it's going to add that into that project selection. From there, you can then download it in a variety of different formats. I'm going to hit select all. Well, first I'll show you that all those products we talked about are here. You can change sequence, you can change the tagging. You can see this toilet that we started adding and broke out of the selection in doesn't have a tag. I'm going to call this WC tank type. And we'll hit save. And we've got our barrier-free tank type that we copied over as well. You can see the sequence here is 1, so it pops in between 0 and 2. All of that's adjustable. Once I hit select all drawings, the download button comes up, and I can download this now. The configured selections matching exactly what you want. in multiple different formats. I could hit submittal. I could get my fixture schedule in Excel. I could get a long spec, short spec, CSI 3-part spec, all in Word. I can get the manufacturer's cut sheets in a package or all the Revit files. And once I hit generate documents out, it's going to package them all together. I see them running along again and again. I always plan to be running a little bit long, so I have downloaded this ahead of time again. Go into downloads. You can see Lixil webinar that I was downloading earlier, and I've got my submittal sheet where you've combined those multiple product selections onto one page with a nice little written description. You can see that Vormax toilet we were talking about, the lav, our sensor lav, that'd be the 0.35, and then our Studio Saren Studio S series single lever at that 1.2 that we talked about. And of course, the tub and shower. I can pull it up in the Excel schedule as well. Now, one of the nice things with the Excel schedule is it's actually broken down by different applications. Let's see if I can move this bar. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I've got my plumbing schedule, backflow schedule. That's because we've got different products that are in here, the valves, the vacuum breakers that are part of the faucets. But if you had accessories that break down as a separate tab, a pump in the project, your drainage in the project, your water heater is all going to download as a separate schedule with column headers that match industry standards. So you've got all the information available here, and all of our formats, as we mentioned earlier, everything's editable. So if you are using, say, a different toilet seat, we understand, you're not always getting 100% of the job. You can edit this. You can put in your alternate manufacturers, copy and paste as much or as little of this information as we want. We just want to help you out as best as we can. Same thing with the Word spec. This is just one of the 3 versions, like I mentioned. Most people just copy and paste the section and pop it into their written selection. The CSI 3-part spec will match your CSI documentation, the master spec format. So we'll have the same 3-part written spec available. And you can see all the new format that we're just downloading came up as we were talking there. I'll open that up and just show you again what it looks like. So we've got, our long spec, the Revit files, our fixture schedule, and our submittal, all put together in a matter of seconds. So that's the quick and dirty version of the ATS spec tool. If you have additional questions or want to maybe a little bit more descriptive run through, I'm happy to have anyone reach out to me and we can give you a demo. We'll have our team reach out. But that was fantastic information from you today, Gray. I really appreciate you spending the time with us. I think
oh, great.
Well, I loved that conversation. Anytime I can be talking low flow world, I'm having fun with it.
Sounds good. And your tool's cool in that you gosh, the time you would say putting the information in either a presentation mode, spreadsheet, or Word doc, all of them, I think that's awesome.
The difference to me, like obviously a lot of the information is available on the internet. You can Google search, you can find some of the information, but you still have to at some point translate it from whatever documents you are finding into your spec. And this gives you the easiest, most accessible way of not just finding the information, but downloading it in the multiple formats that can be easily tied into your internal documentation and standards. And once you're set up once, it cookie cutters and copies in such an accessible format. So if you would like more information on that, please let me know. If you would like to set up a deeper dive on water efficiency products and get the setup maybe specific for your firm, please feel free to reach out to you. We'll be happy to do this again. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Gray, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you to those in attendance. Spend your time with us. We know that it's in a hot commodity these days.
Right.
Everyone's kids are back to school. Best of luck with that. If your dog's at daycare and you miss them, I hope that it gets back soon. Otherwise, we'll see you again next week when we dive into our next subject. Have a great day, y'all. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you, Zach.